This module demonstrates the system management and user management capabilities of Claroty's CTD solution. We'll be learning how to create custom attributes for hardware assets within your environment, how to configure an Active Directory, how to change naming conventions for the different sites you may have, and a large number of other features. At all stages of the video, we'll be using the CTD plus EMC demo system to demonstrate how the features work. We're on the dashboard page of the CTD solution, and our destination is the Configuration Settings menu. To get there, we need to click the gear wheel icon. The first thing you will see is the System Health dashboard. Here you'll find widgets showing the current status of your CTD server license and of CTD's data collection boundaries. A normal notification means you are not exceeding the maximum number of assets and baseline communications for your site. If you are working from the Enterprise Management Console, or EMC, you will also see a widget showing the functionality of your connected CTD site or sites. We are currently seeing the System Health dashboard from the point of view of the EMC, but we can also choose to see it for any peripheral site. Having switched to the CTD site view, the Server Status widget shows resource utilization statistics for the server hardware. Like any other application, CTD Server uses processing, RAM, and hard disk resources, and it's important to make sure the application doesn't overutilize resources and that all the hardware is functional. The CTD Site view also has a Traffic Sources Status section. This shows the current status of the hardware interfaces, typically that is core network switches, that data is being gathered from, and also indicates whether the relevant interface is picking up OT traffic or has gone offline for some reason. The activity log contains a list of all actions that have been taken on this site. To mention two specific examples, if I add a new query or create a new custom attribute, those activities will be listed here. Moving on to the System Management section, let's start off with General System Configuration Settings. The first thing you'll notice here is that the system is currently running in operational mode. This section contains the controls you need to switch the system between operational mode and training mode. In training mode, CTD builds initial baselines and policies by detecting and storing the network activity of assets that are part of the site. Training mode is a listening and learning mode. In training mode, CTD is busy building behavioral baselines, that is, learning what is and is not acceptable behavior within your network. When CTD is switched over to operational mode, alerts based on behavioral deviations can now be generated. However, it's important to remember that these alerts are generated based on traffic being identified and compared to stored baselines and policies. The System Configuration section contains controls that allow you to change the site's name and description. As a side note, it's very important to create and follow a naming convention that's agreed upon by your entire organization. You can also set the folder size for PCAP alerts. The PCAP folder is where CTD saves PCAP files for system diagnostics. This feature is very important for users who need to keep in contact with Claroty's utilization support team. This feature can take full log snapshots from your system and relay them to Claroty support, where they will be used for system troubleshooting. The System Reset section contains controls to perform a full CTD system reset. Only use this function with extreme caution. If you use the System Reset function, all information gathered from and about the site will be deleted and cannot be recovered. The Custom Attributes section allows you to create custom attributes that can be assigned to any of the hardware assets. As an example, I'm going to create a location attribute that allows me to describe the physical location of a PLC on a production floor. Now that we've created the attribute, let's apply it to an asset. To do this, we'll need to edit an asset listing. So let's return to the main menu, Visibility, and then Assets. Let's edit this asset. Now, I happen to know that this is a Siemens PLC, and I want to add a tag that locates it on the production floor. First, we set our custom attribute by selecting the Physical Location attribute from the drop-down. Then, we enter the physical location of our asset, in this case, production floor, quadrant A1, and click Change. Now let's check that the attribute was applied to the asset. We click the asset listing, and here in the device information section is our new attribute. Another example of the way attribute capability can be used is to create a custom attribute that identifies the person responsible for managing a particular device. In this case, the attribute would contain details regarding which OT technician is actually responsible for it. That way, if there is an alert and this asset is somehow responsible for or involved in the alert, the user has an immediate line of contact to the responsible person. By default, virtual zones are generated automatically by CTD using a default behavioral grouping algorithm. The means by which this is done are described in more detail in the CTD module on threat detection. The virtual zone section allows you to choose the method by which CTD creates virtual zones, including by custom attributes, the creation of which we saw a few moments ago. It's important to remember that changing the default zone grouping mechanism may cause fundamental changes in the way data is shown on your system. Before changing these settings, please contact a Claroty technical representative for advice. To view the site management settings, we first need to select EMC from the Site Selection dropdown. This section allows the user to view which CTD monitored sites are connected to their EMC console. The site status and site mode are available to view, and I can also upload a sitemap if needed. Another key option in this section is to allow automatic CTD version upgrades whenever the EMC version is upgraded. This means that if any CTD servers are connected to my EMC console, those CTD servers will be automatically upgraded to the most current version whenever the EMC itself is upgraded. This makes organization-wide upgrades easy and intuitive. To view the deployment architecture settings, we first need to select EMC from the Site Selection dropdown. This section allows the user to view the current deployment architecture for Claroty components. As we can see here, we're currently viewing from the EMC, and only one instance of CTD server is connected to our EMC. If I needed to detach the CTD monitored site from the EMC, I would click the Detach button. Viewing the deployment architecture settings from CTD site level, this page would show CTD sensors. No CTD sensors are currently connected here, therefore the page is blank. If automatic CTD version upgrades are enabled using the Site Management Settings page, any CTD sensors that are part of the system will also be automatically upgraded to the current version. The Subnets section contains the listings for all subnets that have been learned by CTD and allows searches for particular subnets by characteristics such as type, tag, and whether the subnet has been validated by a system administrator. This section also controls CTD's ability to automatically learn and classify the site's subnets. The Cloud Updates section contains a number of controls that allow you to gather various types of additional data using cloud connectivity. To change these settings, we need to be connected through the EMC. Note that if you enable cloud connectivity, all cloud-based data gathering capabilities are enabled by default. From that point, each capability can be enabled or disabled individually. The Threat Intelligence setting controls whether CTD will automatically update its Threat Intelligence database whenever new intelligence bundles are available. Users cannot manually upload Threat Intelligence bundles, but if this setting is enabled, no manual upload needs to be done. The Data Enrichment settings allow CTD to add to its policy zone rule and known threat alert databases by gathering relevant data from the cloud. Now, if you allow your environment to connect to the cloud, it is useful to know that extra information will be available at asset level. To see examples, let's start off back at Threat Detection, Rules, and Zone Rules. Now, this is our list of virtual zones. Note that there is now an additional column headed Cloud Reputation. The entries in this column indicate how common the listed policy rules are in other databases that are connected to the Claroty cloud. This means you now have a group consensus on whether or not a zone policy rule is constructive. To choose an example at random, if this particular rule happens to be a very commonly used one, its cloud reputation score will be very high. And as you can see, all these rules are universally utilized. This feature is designed to give you indications on how you should create zone policy rules within your environment, and also gives you a convenient way to evaluate whether or not rules similar to yours are being constructively utilized in other deployments. The other area in which cloud reputation scores are applied are threat alerts. To demonstrate, let's select a known threat alert. The alert's cloud reputation score is normally shown in the upper right corner. Remember that this is a simulation environment and does not always show cloud reputation data. Be aware that cloud reputation scores are only applied to known threat alerts, such as signature-related alerts. If my environment contains a known threat, I would want to know how common that threat is to other CTD-monitored environments. This feature is a great help in finding out whether what I'm seeing is an isolated attack or whether the attack on my environment is part of a larger event that is targeting other sites simultaneously. The first data analytics setting controls whether Claroty can connect to your CTD installation with the intention of collecting usage data to improve the product. If enabled, it will also add helpful tips and guidance to the UI. The second setting controls whether an SSL connection is made between your CTD installation and Claroty's support teams. If enabled, this will allow Claroty to connect to your environment for health checking, remote tasks, troubleshooting, and debugging. The license section contains your CTD server UUID and license key, and also lists the expiry date for the CTD license key. The log configuration section is part of the system management functionality. The email notification section is used to create notification rules. These are email-based alerts that are sent to users if specified events take place within the system. For example, if I want notifications to be sent if an asset becomes non-functional, I can specify that by selecting Asset Down. The Export Discovered Data section allows us to export a log file containing all asset and asset properties data to an external database. This is particularly useful for backup purposes, and the files can also be used as sources of asset information if you are using AppDB. If you are using this feature, you must insert all needed information to connect to the relevant external database server. In the Security and Authentication section are general settings for your environment's security and authentication methods. This is where EMC and CTD passwords and password policies, user limitations and capabilities, and login and logout rules are set. CTD also contains controls for Security Assertion Markup Language, or SAML authentication. If you want to use SAML authentication with CTD, enter the SAML configuration settings, including the assertion URL, entity ID, single sign-on URL, and the identity provider security certificate that are provided to you. The Users section contains all controls needed to add individual users to the system. Alternatively, you can add groups of users and set group access permissions using the Groups section. Finally, the controls to configure Active Directory are found in the Domains section. Click the Create New icon. From the dialog, specify the correct port, domain name, server, and other needed settings. With that, we conclude the section on system and user management, and thank you for your time.